Most people spend their lives trying to gain power over the world while remaining completely powerless over themselves. They want respect, influence, authority, recognition, and control over their circumstances, yet they have never learned how to control the one thing standing between them and real power, their own mind. They react when they are angry, speak when they are emotional, chase when they feel rejected, and make decisions simply because they cannot tolerate the discomfort of waiting. Then they wonder why other people seem to have so much influence over them. The first principle of power is simple. Before you attempt to control anything outside yourself, learn to control what happens within you. Imagine someone insults you in front of others. Your instinct may tell you to defend yourself immediately. You want to prove that you are not weak. You want the other person to regret what they said. But the moment you allow that impulse to dictate your behavior, you have surrendered control. The other person did not need authority over you. They only needed to discover which emotional button to press. This is why self-control is not weakness. It is protection. A person who cannot control anger can be controlled through provocation. A person who desperately needs approval can be controlled through praise and rejection. A person ruled by jealousy can be controlled through comparison. A person addicted to attention can be controlled through silence. And a person who cannot tolerate uncertainty can be controlled by anyone willing to keep them waiting. The more predictable your emotional reactions become, the easier you are to manipulate. Real power begins when you create distance between what happens and how you respond. Something happens, and instead of immediately reacting, you pause. You observe the emotion rising inside you. You ask yourself what this situation is actually demanding from you. Is a response necessary? Will speaking improve your position? Are you acting from strength? Or are you simply trying to relieve an uncomfortable emotion? That pause can change everything. Self-control does not mean becoming emotionless. Emotions are part of being human. Anger can reveal that a boundary has been crossed. Fear can warn you about danger. Desire can show you what you value. But emotions should provide information, not give commands. You should be able to feel something deeply without allowing that feeling to take control of your decisions. This is the difference between being emotional and being governed by emotion. Look at the people who remain calm when everyone else becomes desperate. They are not necessarily less affected by pressure. They have simply trained themselves not to display every internal reaction. While others rush to speak, they listen. While others reveal their frustration, they observe. While others make decisions based on the moment, they consider what those decisions will create tomorrow. That patience creates an advantage. When you master yourself, you become harder to provoke, harder to manipulate, and harder to predict. People can disagree with you without immediately pulling you into conflict. They can criticize you without destroying your confidence. They can ignore you without forcing you to chase them. They can pressure you without making your decisions for you. And slowly, something changes inside you. You stop needing every situation to go your way before you can remain calm. You stop allowing someone else's behavior to determine your emotional state. You stop confusing immediate reaction with strength. You begin to understand that power is not always about making others move. Sometimes power is the ability to remain still when everything around you is trying to make you move. The strongest form of control is not controlling other people. It is reaching a point where other people's actions no longer have automatic control over you. Master yourself first, because the person who governs his own mind possesses the foundation of every other form of power. The moment you understand that self-control is the foundation of power, you begin to notice another threat that quietly destroys your judgment: emotion. Most people believe their decisions are rational because they think about them before acting. But often the decision has already been made by anger, fear, insecurity, desire, or pride, and the mind simply creates a convincing explanation afterward. You may tell yourself that you are defending your dignity, protecting your interests, or doing what is necessary, when in reality you are simply obeying an emotion that demanded action. This is why powerful people learn to separate feeling from decision. Imagine someone deliberately provokes you. They say something designed to embarrass you, Challenge your intelligence or question your worth. Instantly, you feel the urge to respond. Your body becomes tense. Your mind begins producing arguments. You imagine what you should say and how you will make the other person regret their words. The emotional pressure becomes so strong that remaining silent feels like weakness. But ask yourself what is actually happening. The other person has presented you with a stimulus. Your mind has created an emotional reaction, and now you have a choice. You can obey the reaction or you can observe it. That moment of observation is where your power begins. Anger can make you reveal information you should have kept private. Fear can make you abandon an opportunity before you have fully understood it. Jealousy can make you attack someone who was never truly your enemy. Desire can make you accept conditions you would normally reject. Pride can make you continue a battle that no longer benefits you simply because admitting you were wrong feels unbearable. Every emotion has the potential to narrow your vision. When emotion becomes intense, the immediate moment begins to feel more important than the future. You want relief now. You want revenge now. You want approval now. You want certainty now. But power requires the ability to think beyond the emotional moment and ask what your behavior will cost you later. This is where self-control becomes a form of strategic intelligence. You do not have to suppress your emotions. You have to delay obedience to them. Give yourself time. Walk away from the argument. Sleep before making the decision. Listen before defending yourself. Observe before judging. The goal is to allow the emotional intensity to decrease so that your judgment can return. A person who can remain calm under emotional pressure sees things that an impulsive person cannot see. While anger is demanding action, you can study the motive behind the provocation. While fear is telling you to escape, you can examine whether the danger is real. While jealousy is making you compare yourself to another person, you can ask what insecurity is being exposed inside you. Once you understand the emotion instead of becoming its servant, it loses much of its control. This also changes how others perceive you. People quickly notice who can be manipulated through emotional pressure. If every criticism makes you defensive, they learn to criticize you. If silence makes you desperate, they learn to withdraw attention. If disrespect instantly makes you angry, they learn exactly how to provoke you. But when your reactions become measured, people lose the ability to predict which button will control you. You become less reactive and more deliberate. That does not mean allowing people to mistreat you. Self-control is not passive acceptance. Sometimes the strongest response is a firm boundary, a direct statement, or decisive action. The difference is that you choose the response consciously rather than allowing anger to choose it for you. Power is not demonstrated by how intensely you can react. It is demonstrated by how much control you maintain when you have every reason to react. The next time emotion rises inside you, do not immediately ask, "What should I do?" First ask, "Why do I feel compelled to do this right now?" That single question can create the distance necessary to reclaim your judgment. When you stop allowing temporary emotions to make permanent decisions, you begin to take back control of your life. Once you learn to separate emotion from decision, another dimension of self-control becomes impossible to ignore, the control of what you reveal. Most people speak far too much. They explain their intentions, announce their plans, reveal their insecurities, describe their frustrations, and react visibly to everything that happens around them. They believe openness always creates connection, and that explaining themselves proves honesty. But in many situations, excessive revelation does something else entirely. It gives other people a map of your mind. Every reaction communicates something. The words you choose, the expression on your face, the speed of your response. The things that make you defensive and even the subjects you avoid can reveal what matters to you. If someone knows exactly what makes you angry, they know how to provoke you. If they know what makes you insecure, they know where to attack. If they know how desperately you want their approval, they know how easily they can influence your behavior. This is why self-control must extend beyond your emotions. It must extend to your communication. You do not need to announce every intention before you act. You do not need to explain every decision to people who have not earned that explanation. You do not need to tell everyone what you are planning, what you fear. what you are struggling with, or what you hope to achieve. Some things become stronger when they remain private. Think about how often people destroy their own momentum by talking too early. They announce a goal before doing the work. They describe a future success before creating it. They reveal a strategy to people who have no reason to support it. Then, when circumstances change, they become trapped by their own words. They feel pressure to maintain an image instead of adapting intelligently. Silence creates room for movement. When you reveal less, you gain time to observe more. Instead of constantly trying to convince people that you are confident, you can simply behave with confidence. Instead of explaining why you deserve respect, you can demonstrate it through your boundaries. Instead of announcing what you are going to do, you can allow your actions to speak after the work is complete. This does not mean becoming secretive for the sake of appearing mysterious. Forced mystery is still a form of insecurity. The deeper principle is restraint. You should know what deserves to be shared, with whom, and at what moment. There will be people who try to pull information out of you through pressure. They may ask personal questions disguised as casual conversation. They may provoke you simply to see how you react. They may challenge your decisions because they want you to reveal your reasoning. They may create emotional tension, hoping that you will say something you would normally keep private. You do not have to participate. You can listen without immediately responding. You can answer briefly. You can say less than expected. You can allow silence to exist without rushing to fill it. The person who is uncomfortable with silence often gives away more than they intended simply because they cannot tolerate the empty space. Learn to tolerate it. There is also tremendous strength in refusing to defend yourself against every misunderstanding. Not everyone deserves an explanation. Sometimes people misunderstand you because they lack information. Sometimes they misunderstand you because they want to. Trying to correct every perception can become a trap that keeps you constantly reacting to other people's opinions. Your goal is not to control what everyone thinks of you. Your goal is to control how much access they have to your internal world. When your words become deliberate, your reactions become less predictable. When your emotions remain under control, people have fewer opportunities to manipulate you. When your plans remain private until they are ready, your actions become harder to interfere with. The strongest presence is often not the person who speaks the most, but the person who knows exactly when speaking serves a purpose and when silence serves a greater one. Control your emotions, control your words, and control what you reveal. Because what you keep within your command cannot easily be turned into a weapon against you. Once you learn to control your emotions and become deliberate about what you reveal, you begin to understand another quality that separates those who possess lasting power from those who constantly give it away: patience. Most people think patience means doing nothing. They see waiting as weakness, hesitation, or lack of ambition. But there is a different kind of patience, one that comes from strength rather than uncertainty. It is the ability to resist the demand for immediate results and wait until the moment is right. Impatience makes people predictable. When you desperately want something to happen, you become easier to influence. You rush conversations, accept poor opportunities, reveal your intentions too early, and make decisions simply because you cannot tolerate uncertainty. The need to act becomes stronger than the need to think. And once that happens, you begin serving the moment instead of your long-term interest. A powerful mind understands that timing can matter more than speed. Imagine someone trying to provoke you into an argument. They want an immediate reaction because an emotional response gives them information and control. If you react instantly, you enter the situation on their terms. But if you pause, you change the structure of the interaction. You are no longer responding because you were pushed. You are deciding whether the situation deserves your energy at all. The same principle applies to opportunities. Not every opportunity deserves an immediate yes. Sometimes the desire to move quickly comes from fear that something better will disappear. You convince yourself that you must decide now before someone else takes your place or before the opportunity closes. But urgency can distort judgment. When you slow down, you give yourself enough distance to examine what is actually being offered. Patience allows information to reveal itself. People expose themselves over time. Their promises become patterns. Their words become actions, or they do not. Their intentions become clearer. A person who seems trustworthy during one conversation may reveal a completely different character after several months. If you rush to judgment, you may build your decisions on appearances. If you observe patiently, patterns begin to speak louder than promises. This is why patience is connected directly to self-control. You must be able to tolerate discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. You must be able to sit with uncertainty without demanding an instant answer. You must be able to watch someone walk away without chasing them simply because silence makes you uncomfortable. Sometimes doing nothing is not surrender. It is information gathering. While others rush, you can observe. While others reveal their emotions, you can understand the situation. While others spend their energy trying to force an outcome, you can wait for circumstances to become more favorable. But patience does not mean endless waiting. There is a difference between strategic patience and fear disguised as patience. Strategic patience has a purpose. You are waiting because you are learning, preparing, gathering information, or allowing conditions to improve. When the moment arrives, you act decisively. Think of a person who has trained themselves to resist immediate gratification. They do not need every reward today. They can work quietly while nobody notices. They can build skills without receiving applause. They can save resources instead of spending everything for temporary pleasure. They can walk away from attractive distractions because they understand what those distractions would cost them later. That person is building something more valuable than temporary success, internal authority. Every time you delay an unnecessary impulse, you strengthen your ability to choose. Every time you refuse to react simply because someone expects you to, you become less predictable. Every time you wait for the right moment instead of forcing the wrong one, you increase the quality of your decisions. The world constantly tries to make you hurry. It tells you to respond immediately, decide immediately, speak immediately, buy immediately, prove yourself immediately. But you do not have to obey every demand for speed. Sometimes the greatest advantage you can create is the ability to wait without becoming restless. When you control your timing, you stop allowing urgency to control your mind, and that is where patience becomes power. There is a difference between looking powerful and actually possessing power, and that difference is discipline. Many people try to create the appearance of strength through their clothes, their words, their social position, or the way they treat others. They want people to believe they are confident, successful, and in control. But appearance can only survive for so long. Eventually, reality exposes what is underneath. If your confidence disappears when you are criticized, if your discipline disappears when nobody is watching, or if your principles disappear when temptation becomes strong, then the image was never power. It was performance. Real power is built quietly. It begins with the promises you make to yourself. Every time you tell yourself that you will do something and then abandon it because you are tired, distracted, or tempted, you teach your mind that your own words have no authority. But every time you make a commitment and keep it, especially when you do not feel like keeping it, something changes. You begin to trust yourself. That trust becomes the foundation of self-control. You do not need to prove your strength to everyone around you when you have already proven it to yourself. You know that you can resist impulses. You know that you can tolerate discomfort. You know that you can continue when motivation disappears. This creates a form of confidence that cannot easily be taken away because it is not dependent on applause. Consider the person who wants to become successful. He may spend hours talking about his ambitions, describing what he will accomplish, and imagining how people will treat him once he succeeds. Another person says almost nothing. He simply works. He wakes up when he said he would wake up. He develops the skill he decided to master. He continues when progress becomes slow. He does not need constant recognition because the evidence of his discipline is visible in his behavior. Over time, the difference becomes impossible to hide. The disciplined person develops competence, and competence creates natural authority. People begin to trust those who consistently do what they say. They respect those who remain stable under pressure. They notice the person who does not constantly change direction according to mood, criticism, or temptation. This is why power should never be confused with aggression. Aggression often reveals a lack of internal control. Someone who constantly needs to dominate every conversation may be trying to convince himself of his own importance. Someone who becomes furious whenever challenged may be protecting a fragile sense of identity. Someone who needs everyone to recognize his strength may secretly depend on external validation. True strength does not require constant advertisement. The more secure you become internally, the less you feel compelled to perform. You can listen without needing to win every conversation. You can admit a mistake without feeling that your entire identity has been destroyed. You can change your strategy without feeling humiliated. You can walk away from an unnecessary conflict because your ego no longer demands that you prove yourself. This is another form of self-control, controlling the need to appear powerful. Discipline also means controlling your environment and your habits. If you allow distractions to consume every hour, you weaken your ability to focus. If you constantly chase entertainment, you become uncomfortable with effort. If you repeatedly choose short-term pleasure over long-term growth, you train yourself to obey impulses. Your habits are teaching you who is in command. Every small decision becomes a vote for the person you are becoming. Choosing to finish the difficult task instead of avoiding it. Choosing to remain silent instead of reacting. Choosing preparation instead of excuses. Choosing long-term progress instead of immediate gratification. These choices may look insignificant in the moment, but they accumulate into character. Eventually, you no longer need to force yourself to behave with discipline because discipline has become part of your identity. You become someone who can be trusted by yourself, and when you can trust yourself, you become much harder for circumstances, temptation, and other people to control. Do not build power by trying to look powerful. Build it through discipline until your actions make the appearance unnecessary. After learning to control your emotions, your reactions, your words, your timing, and your habits, you arrive at the deepest form of self-control. Becoming difficult to control, this is where power becomes internal rather than dependent on circumstances. Because the greatest weakness is not failure, rejection, criticism, or even losing something valuable. The greatest weakness is allowing another person's behavior to determine your emotional state and ultimately your decisions. Think about how easily people can be controlled through validation. Give them praise, and they become attached to you. Withdraw that praise, and they begin questioning themselves. Give them attention, and they feel important. Take it away, and they start chasing. Approve of their choices, and they become confident. Criticize those same choices, and suddenly they doubt everything. When your emotional stability depends on someone else's approval, you have given that person authority over you. Self-control means taking that authority back. This does not mean becoming indifferent to people. Human beings naturally want connection, recognition, and respect. The problem begins when these desires become requirements for your peace. If you need everyone to like you, you will eventually compromise yourself to maintain their approval. If you cannot tolerate criticism, you will begin changing yourself whenever someone disapproves. If rejection destroys your confidence, you may chase people who have already shown you that they do not value your presence. A person who is internally secure does something different. They listen to criticism without automatically accepting it. They appreciate praise without becoming dependent on it. They enjoy attention without needing it. They can be misunderstood without immediately launching into an explanation. They can lose someone's approval without losing their sense of identity. This is freedom. Imagine someone deliberately ignoring you. The instinct may be to ask what happened, send another message, demand an explanation, or somehow prove your value. But why does their silence have such power? Because somewhere inside, you have connected their attention to your worth. Break that connection. Someone else's decision to ignore you describes their behavior, not your value. Someone's rejection does not automatically mean you are inadequate. Someone's criticism does not automatically make you wrong. Someone's lack of recognition does not erase your accomplishments. You must learn to evaluate yourself without constantly waiting for the world to give you a verdict. This is especially important when dealing with manipulation. People often discover your emotional dependencies and use them without you realizing it. If they know you cannot tolerate being disliked, they can pressure you with disapproval. If they know you fear abandonment, they can threaten to leave whenever they want something. If they know you desperately want recognition, they can give or withdraw praise to influence your behavior. But when you become comfortable standing alone, these strategies lose their power. You become capable of saying no without feeling guilty. You can leave situations that repeatedly violate your boundaries. You can disappoint people when necessary. You can walk away from relationships that demand that you betray yourself just to keep them. You can choose long-term self-respect over short-term acceptance. That is not arrogance. It is psychological independence. And independence does not mean refusing all advice. A self-controlled person can still listen, learn, and change. The difference is that they decide what to accept. They do not surrender their judgment simply because someone speaks with confidence or authority. Your mind should have an internal center. When praise comes, remain grounded. When criticism comes, remain grounded. When opportunity appears, remain grounded. When rejection arrives, remain grounded. When people celebrate you, remain grounded. When they turn against you, remain grounded. The external world will always change. People will change their opinions. Circumstances will shift. Relationships will begin and end. Opportunities will appear and disappear. If your emotional state rises and falls with every external change, you will spend your life being controlled by forces you cannot command. But when your stability comes from within, you become much harder to manipulate. You no longer need to chase people to prove your worth. You no longer need to react to every insult to protect your ego. You no longer need to explain yourself to everyone who misunderstands you. You no longer need immediate rewards to remain committed to your path. You become your own source of authority. And that is the final lesson of self-control. True power begins when you stop giving other people the ability to decide how you feel, how you think, and how you behave.